Hiya guys, and welcome back to Wade's Workshop. So this episode, I've been putting mixed episodes up lately. So this one, purely the Webster Engine, part 14. More small parts, the rocker arm, odd bits to do with that, the rocker arm shaft. Lots of small pieces you'll see me making in this, and doing my usual design as I go along and thinking about it, and you can see the little gears going round in my head as I'm doing these jobs. Anyway, with that said, I hope you enjoy it, guys. So I've made a little rocker, as you can see here. Oop, banging it about. So in this end of it, underneath the camshaft, is an M5 reamed hole. It's a 10mm reamed hole through the middle. That's going to take this little needle roller bearing, and this end's got an M5 tapped hole that's going to be the tappet, as it were. So I've just done a bit of working out on heights and what have you. Now the thought is, let me pull that out, I'm going to put a square, or might even be circular, circular be fine, a PTFE pad with an M5 or a 5mm diameter shoulder on it that'll drop down into that reamed hole, that's going to follow the cam. So the cam will be running on a slice or a little insert of PTFE in the end, and the head thickness needs to be 2.5mm thick. That allows me adjustment, so to speak. So with that in mind, what I need to do is put a hole in the back here. Now it's going to be M4, so I'm going to turn up a little shaft, should I say, with a head on it, that's got the 6mm to go through here, over a length long enough to bring out this rocker the right distance out, and then it's going to have an M4 thread turned on the end of it, and that M4 thread, in fact, I might even just put an M4 hole through here with a counterbore on the other side, and then I can basically drill into the little carrier and bolt it on in place. In fact, that'll probably be simpler, because I can bolt it on from the back. It's easier than trying to get in here. So yeah, designing on the fly again. So I worked out my distances. So from these hole centers, which is the center of the valve block, so from these hole centers, 20mm in, basically from that hole in the center there, 20mm out to there, 20mm out to there. So 20mm in to be the center of the two, the pivot point, and I need to bring it up from the base 9.4mm. So drill and tap a hole in there in the right place. Drill and tap, yeah, I'm thinking about that one. So doing it from the back side, so I can put the counterbore in. I've set a 0, so 4.1 deep. Maybe a little past. Okay, so that's the hole in there and counterbored for a little M4 bolt. I've got the M4 bolt. Okay, so there's the M4 bolt. I just put a chamfer on there now. Let's do that while I'm at it. Just put that little counterbore away. Little chamfer on there. That should do for that. Will that fit the hole there? Yes. Ooh, no, it's too slow. Okay, so right, that's the hole for the pivot point for the rocker. I don't know if you can see from this one here, but there's a little 0.5mm rebate in the top of there, and the idea being that when I put the cross pin in, as long as it's shorter than that rebate, when under the spring tension pushing the collet back or the retaining cap back, that the shoulder or step, 0.5mm deep, it's going to be a 1mm pin, but the step will retain the pin to stop the pin coming out. So that's the thinking behind it. I'll just get a touch off on here. There we are. Tip just a tiny bit, but that's fine. Set a 0. There is a hole in the middle, so I can get away with using an end mill. As opposed to a slot cutter. There we are. looks central to me. Happy days. So okay, little vise in the big vise. It's a bit more delicate on the little vise. Okay, and there's a little little undercut. I'll have to just put a break edge on the hole in the middle, and those caps will now retain the pin. They'll do two functions: retain the spring, and the pin will be retained by the cap. So I've made a little bush, turned it up in the lathe, drilled it out to take the valve, put it up here in the vise, or in the vise, centered it up middle of the world, you come off the end, and I've got a hole drilled through this, 1mm, 100 thou back from this front face. So I put a little M3 grub screw in the top. Now, yeah, it's not the greatest plan in the world, because it's difficult for me to get it in, but I got a little tiny pliers. I can simply locate that. Simply, he says. Okay, got it. Pop it in the bush. Just set it flush to the front. There we go. And I've done it this way around because I can see the front. That's better. Just nip that. Wrong Allen key, eh? I mean, this is just the slightest of nip. Okay, so that's not going anywhere. Let's just double check. Yeah, that's tight. Right, let's come back to my zero. I've got a zero set on the DRO, but I can just wind out the way just for the purposes of changing the part. So this is the second one. I did the first one off camera to prove the process, as it were. And in through the hole, which is already drilled, and we'll just peck through there. With a 1mm hole. That's through. Okay, process done. That's the two valves done like that. So basically that's just lined it up and given me that sort of center point, giving me a means by which to hold the part to drill it, and a gauge depth for length. Yeah, it sort of covered all bases with one little bush, and literally took me a couple of minutes to make. You know, it was honestly a couple of minutes. A straight bit of 8mm silver steel in the lathe, drill it out 2.5, put it up in here, find the center, touch off the end, drill a hole right through, 1mm, drill a 2.5, tap it, job's a good one. Anyway, so there is a 1mm hole through the shaft. Maybe if I put it on, the drill bit might show up a bit better. Yeah, there you go. A 1mm drilled hole through a 2.5mm shaft. So yeah, it's fiddly little stuff. Now I'm gonna have to see what I can find that's 1mm diameter now. I might sacrifice an old drill bit and just grind a couple of little dinkuses off the end that'll fit inside the retaining cap. Do that. That's a thought. So I don't know how well this shows, but yeah, little piece of 1mm drill bit, the shank of a 1mm drill in there. And yeah, obviously the rebate in the retainer holds the pin in, it can't slide out, or only as far as the edge of the rebate. And that valve works quite nicely. So this is the exhaust side. So actually I put the springs in the wrong one. This is a weaker spring, and I've got a stronger spring for the exhaust. So yeah, not to worry, it's all going to come apart again anyway. So I've just turned up this bush, or pivot pin I should say, 6mm OD, it's a piece of 3/8 silver steel, and I'm just in the process of drilling it out with an M4 tapping drill to take the M4 bolt that's going to hold it in place. And I've totally lost count of how many turns I went in. Okay, we'll call that 0. One more 8mm deep hole. That's a 3.3 drill. So yeah, this is going to be the rocker shaft, I suppose we'll call it. So I need to tap the end M4 now. Okay, so just handballing that. No heroics, no power feeding, no none of that. No doing it under power. So M4 hole up the end of there, only 8mm deep. Now I am going to be cross drilling this at a later stage to let oil out, much as I did with the other one, the other pivot pin, which I can't even remember, or the crank pin on the end of the, or the big end we'll call it, on the end of the corn rod. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much done to length now. Part it off now, I think, and then tidy the other end up. So yeah, why not? Let's do that now. Let's just come out of the way. Parting blade is at the ready. So this head is in fresh air. No reason why I can't have a bit of substance to this. Maybe 2.5mm wide, something like that. So bit of fluid in my brush for parting. I don't know what speed I'm on. Let's have a look. Yeah, 600 there. Okay, let's get that tailstock out of the way. Okay, so you can still see. Yep. Let's part this off. Let's just lock my carriage. Oh, a bit more speed there, shall we? 800. So there's no hole here. Okay, that's that parted off. Let's put it back up and sort the head out now. So out with that bit of 01. Okay, let's have that parting tool out of the way. Make sure we're all nice and clean in the chuck. Okay, back up she goes. I need to grip its throat too tight with the chuck there. So we'll face off the head just to make it look nice. I'm going to have a nice big chamfer on here. Try and keep the same style with this. Parting tool's a touch low. Turning tool. I've been messing with this, so. Yeah, still a touch low. I think I've worn the tip out on the tool. I think it might have a chip in it. It's not sounding right. And that's affected the centre height. Quite often is a telltale, because I do tend to keep these tools set on a centre height. And if you see that tip being left behind, certainly with these little carbide ones, it's pretty much a telltale that there's a problem with the end of the tip. I mean, it's cutting right, but maybe a little surface chip, something like that. So let's have a nice big chamfer on here, similar to the other one. Didn't really want that vibration in there. Let's just see if I can. I'm gonna have to mess with that. I didn't want the vibration in my chamfer, because that's a finished thing. Okay, I think what I'll do, just pull it out in the chuck a little bit. Got a little polish on there, I think. Speed it up. Okay. That looks sweet. Something just fell on my foot. I know what it was. Don't like dropping things on the floor if I can help it. It was a brush. Okay, so this side, let's pop it back into the chuck. Okay, centre drill now. The one I used on the other side's a bit small. That's something the oil gun will go into. Nothing huge. Okay, that'll do. Might be a little large actually. No, I will go smaller. Oh dear me. Find your tools, eh? That's better. That's a more appropriate size. So yeah, there's going to be an oil hole in here so that I can inject oil into the needle roller bearing. So, centre drill. Now I know you can't see. Just slow down the touch. It doesn't matter if I break into the 3.3 hole really with the thread is in the other end. The bolt will block oil coming out, and there's still going to be a cross drilled hole, so any oil I pump in the end here will still come out the cavity, as it were. I think that's going to do me. Okay, so I don't believe I broke through, but I actually want to break through into this, so I'm going to put perhaps a 2mm drill in there. Okay, don't know if this chuck's small enough to take a 2mm. Oh, it's wobbling about, tighten up the tailstock a bit. Okay, it's held. A little. Just want to break through. It's going to be about 3mm, I think. It won't be that far because the pilot of the centre drill went in. Okay. Wasn't very much at all. So that is that. Pretty much. Other than the cross drilling of it, that's that little pin done. A little swivel. So yeah, there we are. Give it that a blowout, clean out. Cross drill it and put a screwdriver slot in it so it doesn't turn. I think we need to do. I just put a tiny mark in there with a centre drill. And 1mm drill. Just want to go through into that cavity. Okay, we're in. So yeah, I happen to have the 1mm drill up in the chuck from the previous exercise, so I thought I'd leave it. Well, it was there, and that's the one I used. There we are, screwdriver slot. So I've just hardened that pin, quenched it, heated up cherry red, quenched it down, left it for a bit, come back and polished it after hardening. Got my pliers here at the ready, I'm all at the ready. It's going to smoke a bit because there's a bit of oil left inside. I'm just going to try and get myself a sort of pale. There is smoking a bit now, I can see it, there's a bit of oil burning off. You just want to get it sort of pale straw colour. That will do. Let's put that in the oil. Might have gone a little bit far there, but sometimes it can throw you off if there's a bit of oil in there, because the oil can brown up as it burns on the surface. You think you're there. Anyway, so yeah, it's in the oil. Bring it back, give it a polish, it's ready to go. Well, there's the pivot pin on its little with the M4 bolt that it's going to be used to secure it to the framework. Yeah, basically I've just polished it up. I just run the top across some wet and dry just to bring that back to a polish. Polished up the shaft. That's ready for the needle bearing now. It's got its cross drilled hole. By putting the oil gun down on the end on that little counterbored hole, or centre drilled hole, I'll be able to squirt a bit of oil in from time to time just to lubricate that needle roller. So the little bits are coming together now. What I've noticed, well, I knew about, I'm going to need a spacer to go behind here to stop this sliding back and forth from underneath the cam. And because I didn't bore or counterbore that bearing into its hole, the cam is actually too far out. It's not centered over the rocker. So if I just rotate the cam, you'll just see the general action of it. Now there is going to be a pad on top of here. And obviously as the cam goes round, as long as there's a spring under the end of the rocker, let me just put a bit of weight on it. As you can see, as the cam comes round, it lifts the rocker shaft, which again will lift the valve, exhaust valve open. So I can either bite the bullet and counterbore that bearing into there, which is probably what I should do, what I should have done all along really, or I can skim a bit off the back face of the cam. I'll probably sink that bearing in and then see how we are. I may need to just adjust it just to get it centralised. So the tapped hole in the end of here is centralised over the rocker, or with the valve I should say, so I can't move this. So yeah, I can sort that out. I may pocket a little spring in the underside into the plate, a circular spring into the underside of the plate, just to keep this in contact with the cam. Only a light spring it needs to be. The valve spring will be enough to push it back, but I just want to keep it in contact. So whether I put a circular brass pad in there, in the hole, let me just pull that out of the way. Okay, so whether I put a circular brass pad in here, which is quick and simple for me to change, should I get a bit of wear on it. I have got adjustment on this end. So another thing I want to do is on the bottom of the exhaust valve, where at the moment it's just a brake edge, I want to put a ball profile on the end of there, just a you know, a semicircle. Simple enough to do, nice big chamfer, I can file the rest. May have to put it in that little cross drilling jig that I had to be able to do it, so I can hold it in the chuck, but that's a minor detail. And then when I make this screw here, I'm going to put a concave top in it to take that ball so that it can ride around in the cup, and then I can put a drop of oil in there. I'll probably make it out of brass. Will I? I don't know. We'll see. Another thing that I mentioned earlier, I was going to put a brass end in the little grub screws. Life's too short for that. I basically just ordered a packet of 10 M3 brass grub screws. So yeah, that's absolutely fine. I've got around that. I still need to put the M3 tapped hole in this cam. Something I haven't done yet. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of bits and pieces to do. Tiny things. But it's all adding up. And as we always say, all adding in the right direction, or heading in the right direction. So I just made a little brass insert for the end. Now I reamed this whole 5mm in the aluminium. I've made this, it's going to be just a slight or a light press bit. It's not going to be loose, it's not going to be pushing with fingers, it will be a press bit. So I've left it over length, so it's got a bit of the brass sticking out, or will be, but a bit of the brass sticking out the bottom. And that will make a useful locator for the spring underneath. So I just need to make sure what spring I'm going to use, or see what spring, and I may have to turn this down a little. You know, I don't want it to be fitty on the spring, but anyway, that's my thinking there, so that this brass part has a double job as well. Again, I've left it a little bit thicker. I was planning on 2.5. It's drawn up for 2.5 so that the rocker is level. on the low part of the cam. I left it a little bit higher, just to allow for a little bit of wear, and of course I got the adjuster on the other end that I can adjust to get the clearance right, so that when we're on the low part of the cam it's just off the cam, that sort of idea, or just not lifting the lobe. So I can time it and set it. That's what I'm thinking, and it allows for a little bit of wear on the brass or on the cam or what have you. So having just thought about that, I've found a suitable spring, and yeah, there's plenty of room in there, so it'll allow for movement. But so when that's in there, that spring's going to sit underneath, be located by the end of the brass pin, just to keep it in position, and then there'll be a pocket then, oversized on the spring, to go down in to the bed plate afterwards, so that spring's sort of located forever. You'll notice that I made the diameter of this narrower than the cam. Well, slightly, but it's not wider than the cam. What I didn't want is the cam wearing a groove in this, but the high points, you know, the high points in the way, so the cam will over time wear a scallop into this, I suppose. I haven't hardened the cam yet, but it will wear a semicircle into this over time, and of course I can take up the adjustment on the other end. But I didn't want it to I didn't want it wider than the cam, so the cam wears a groove in it. It'll actually wear across the whole surface. That's why I made the decision to go narrower than the cam. The brass should be softer than the cam, so the brass should wear rather than the cam. So the cam's more difficult to make. This little turn part is a 2-minute job to replace. And again, sorry about rattling on with this. I was just about to press that down into there, and then realised I do want to put some radii on the end of here, and I'd like to bring it in basically a full rad on the end of the aluminium, so I want to use this hole to pick up on to be able to do that. So I don't want to press that in yet. I could use the end of the pin, I suppose, but yeah, I'd rather use the hole. It's easier to pick up on. Well, as you can see, the bits and pieces are starting to add up now. Piston I haven't even started yet. I still haven't ordered those O-rings. I need to do that. Yeah, flywheels here wrapped up in some wax cloth. Again, the cylinder, that's cast as well. You know, they tend to flash rust if I don't protect them here in the shed. Pulleys, bearings, valve block, odd springs, levers, rockers, crankshaft, camshaft, all the mounts, bits and pieces, spark plugs, belts. Yeah, so I keep them, and I've showed it before. I'm sure I've showed these in one of these organisers. Like, it's a bare one, which is like a project organiser. I used one on the Stuart Models engine, and I'm using one on this as well. So it just, when I've done a bit, when I've done a part, I put them all in there, and I know everything's all safe in the right place. Well, there we are. That's about it for this one. Time for a cup of tea. Anyway, that said, I hope you enjoyed this, guys. The last episode, episode 13, didn't seem to be that popular on YouTube, and I'm itching to get on with the Alexander tool and cutter grinder, as it were, or the benchtop grinder, but I'm determined not to attack that until I've finished at least one of the previous projects, whether that be the mini lathe or the Webster engine. So yeah, I know what I'm like. I'll start on something new and something be put on the back burner again, much as the mini lathe was when I started on the Webster. So I don't want to do that. But anyway, I'm going to persevere with it, even though the subject matter doesn't seem to be that popular. But never mind, I'm enjoying doing it still. That's all that matters, really, isn't it? And I'm bringing you along on the journey. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you all very soon. Cheers now. Oh, happy days.